In the year 1828, a little Indian boy living on Ward Creek had sold a gold nugget to a white trader, and that one nugget sealed the doom of the Cherokees. The removal of the Cherokee Indians from their lifelong homes in the year of 1838 found me a young man in the prime of life and a private soldier in the American Army. Being acquainted with many of the Indians and able to fluently speak their language, I was sent as interpreter into the Smoky Mountain country in May 1838 and witnessed the execution of the most brutal order in the history of American warfare. I saw the helpless Cherokees arrested and dragged from their homes and driven at the bayonet point into the stockades. And in the chill of a drizzling rain on an October morning, I saw them loaded like cattle into 645 wagons and started toward the west. One can never forget the sadness of that morning. Chief John Ross led in prayer, and when the bugle sounded and the wagon started rolling, many of the children rose to their feet and waved their little hands goodbye to their mountain homes, knowing they were leaving them forever. The sufferings of the Cherokees were awful. The trail of the exiles was a trail of death. They had to sleep in the wagons and on the ground without fire, and I've known as many as 22 of them to die in one night of pneumonia due to ill treatment, cold, and exposure. Among this number was the beautiful Christian wife of Chief John Ross. This noble-hearted woman died a martyr to childhood, giving her only blanket for the protection of a sick child. Her unconfined body was buried in a shallow grave by the roadside far from her native home, and the sorrowing cavalcade moved on. The long, painful journey to the west ended March 26, 1839, with 4,000 silent graves reaching from the foothills of the Smoky Mountains to what is known as Indian Territory in the west. Chief Junaluska was personally acquainted with President Andrew Jackson. Junaluska had taken 500 of his Cherokee scouts and helped Jackson to win the Battle of the Horseshoe, and in that battle, Junaluska had drove his tomahawk through the skull of a Creek warrior when the Creek had Jackson at his mercy. Chief John Ross sent Junaluska as an envoy to plead with President Jackson for protection for his people, but Jackson's manner was cold and indifferent toward the rugged son of the forest who had saved his life. He met Junaluska, heard his plea, but curtly said, "Sir, your audience is ended. There's nothing I can do for you." The doom of the Cherokee was sealed. And in May 1838, an army of 4,000 regulars and 3,000 volunteer soldiers marched into the Indian country and wrote the blackest chapter on the pages of American history. Men working in the fields were arrested and driven to the stockades. Women were dragged from their homes by soldiers whose language they could not understand. And often the old and infirm were prodded with bayonets to hasten them to the stockades. Chief Junaluska, who had saved President Jackson's life at the Battle of Horseshoe, witnessed this scene. The tears gushing down his cheeks, and lifting his cap, he turned his face toward the heavens and said, "Oh my God, if I had known at the Battle of the Horseshoe what I know now, American history would have been differently written." school children of today do not know that we are living on lands that were taken from a helpless race at the bayonet point to satisfy the white man's greed. Future generations will read and condemn the act. Murder is murder, whether committed by the villain skulking in the dark or by uniformed men stepping to the strains of martial music. Murder is murder, and somebody must answer. Somebody must explain the streams of blood that flowed in the Indian country in the summer of 1838. Somebody must explain the 4,000 silent graves that mark the trail of the Cherokees to their exile. I wish I could forget it all, but the picture of 645 wagons lumbering over the frozen ground with their cargo of suffering humanity still lingers in my memory. Still lingers in my memory. I wish I could forget it all. Still lingers in my